what's going on, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Sick, Scared, and Stupid, a podcast where you're going to learn how not to be the three aforementioned things and to find a life of health, happiness, and wealth. I've got a really special guest today, a guy that I've been actually looking up to for quite a while. He's putting out some really great content, encouraging a big message. He's got probably one of the nicest voices. Also, you probably will recognize his voice from some of the content that he's put out with his voiceovers. It's very nice. It's very calming. But to give a little bit of background on this guest, he's a former ski instructor. He spent actually 15 years in Switzerland living and teaching ski instruction, and has been teaching and practicing martial arts throughout his entire life. And now, where he's originally from in the UK, he runs carnivore-based retreats throughout the UK into the Scottish Highlands, where he actually takes people through bits of strength training, some breath work, some understanding of meditation, and development of mindset and self-discipline. So it's a little bit of a preview, what I already think is some really cool bullet points, but without further ado, the founder and man behind the Mason Survival Protocol, Mr. Michael Mason.
Thank you for having me.
Man, I feel like this is a long time coming for me, just because I've been stalking you for a while and seeing what you've been putting out, especially and for everybody that doesn't know, I mean, Mr. Fit at 60, like doing what you're doing, looking how you're looking, seemingly feeling how you do, clearly having a zest for life. Michael, what sparked it all for you? What, again, kind of the background I gave on being a ski instructor in Switzerland, following the lifestyle and dedication of martial arts practice, and now just doing what you're doing. And really what I see is like showing a proverbial like middle finger to the world of like, hey, this is who I am. This is what is working. I'm clearly healthy. I clearly am strong. I clearly feel great. And I'm not subscribing to the norm or the status quo. What kind of puts you on this mission, so to speak?
Well, I suppose the mission came from when I was a kid, and watching TV programs that were just, for me, were very sort of not just inspiring but magical. And there was two of the major programs. There was one program that came out in the 60s, the late 60s. It was called The Champions, and it was about three people who their plane crashed over Tibet. They were in a crash. They got rescued by monks, and they were given special powers. And then they ended up working for an organisation based in Switzerland, based in Geneva. And as a kid, when this was in the late 60s, so it's the 50, 60 years ago, where we don't have all that. Like the stuff that we have now. So then it was like really sort of like you think, wow, all these guys had special powers, and so that inspired me. But also because of where their organisation was based. It was based in Geneva, and so their offices looked out, of the mountains, the snow-capped mountains, the Jet d'Or, the waterfall in Lake Geneva. And that was just sort of, inspiring for me. And, we used to play that as kids. There was two guys and there was one girl, and they had these special powers. And so there was that. And then there was, I suppose, the next major one, that was the major one, was when Kung Fu came out with David Carradine in 1973, and also with Bruce Lee. Bruce Lee was, Enter the Dragon. And the film came up, and as a kid I was reading the book, and I remember the book, as if it was yesterday, and that just inspired me, because they were doing all these magical moves, and they were taking on the bad guys, and it was from that just sparked that thing in me that I just wanted. That's what I wanted to be like. That's what I wanted. I wanted to have special powers, and then moving on from that. I remember, mother, she enrolled me in a karate school, and this was in 1973. And interestingly enough, I think it was last year, I was walking in a mall in the town that I live in the city that I live in Brighton. And the instructor I met him. He was in this mall. He was in his 90s. His name Sensei Ron Silverthorne, and I said, I can remember him. It was, this is 50 odd years ago, more than 50 years ago. And I said, you won't remember me, but I used to come and train with you when I was a kid. And he was in his 90s. He was still training. He was still teaching. He had a grip-like handshake because he sort of like shook my hand, and it was just, it was that sort of that circle. It was just, and so that was just really, really inspiring me, and and also where my parents lived, in the early 70s, they lived next door to an ex-boxer who was the ex-European heavyweight champion, and he fought Joe Louis in the 30s for the heavyweight title. He didn't win, and so I was just surrounded by people that were just sort of inspiring to me. And then moving on from that, as I got older, I went into the hellhole. I went into drug addiction, and then from 22 was then the real sort of, I suppose, the real driver for me just to follow a different path, but based on the stuff that I learned as a kid with martial arts, and wanting to be, I'd taken one, let's call it one wrong turn. Went down to hell basically, and then came out of that, and then from then that was my path onwards, and that was in 1986, and so you'll see on my Mason Survival logo, it's got since 1986, and that was a time that I cleaned up, stopped drinking, stopped taking drugs. And it was from then, it was like, to me, it was like, I've only got one path, and that one path was to ultimately be the best I could possibly be in mind, body, and spirit.
God, 1986. So you had a run in the 80s, so to speak, of when you were hitting bottom and really dredging through it. In the UK at the time too?
Yeah, in UK.
Wow. What a time, man. What an era. I mean, you had some great music coming around. But geez, that had to be, I mean, how old were you then?
So in 86 I was 22.
22.
So by the time I was 22, I'd been low enough to know that's not the way for me.
Got it. So that's my question was, you're talking about obviously having the idols that you saw in the champions and the fantasy and the dreams of those heroes, right? They're like heroic characters having superpowers, totally. Where did the curiosity take you away from that and into the life? When and then at what age did the grip get you and hold you until 22?
I think it's sort of difficult to say. I mean, I think a lot of it was just self-experimentation. I'm reluctant to say there was no peer pressure in terms, but there was pressure from peers. No one forced me to do anything, but I just happened to be in a place that it was normal. Yeah. It was normal in a rebellious way. So I was trying to rebel. I was trying to rebel, I guess, against the normality of stuff. I didn't know who I didn't know who I was. I didn't have a defined notion of who, and I guess most people don't.
Sure.
I suppose it goes back to how your parents have brought you up, how they've in one sense have defined you, but I had no sort of definition of I've always felt like a bit of a, the round peg in the square hole, or the square hole in the, the square peg in the round, in the rounder. And, many people feel like that. I think most people, feel like that. So it was an experimentation that sort of became more than that. And some people can experiment and think, immediately think, oh, that's not for me. And then some people experiment and think, oh, I like this. This is a sort of, this defines me in a way. And then you get to a point that's like, no, this is not me.
Yep. Yeah.
And that
with
all of that has been the driver for who I am now.
So what point when, at 22, was there like a marquee moment where you really just had the lightning bolt, or the aha, or the eureka, or this can't go on, it's not sustainable, I'm going to die, or, what got you to pull up yourself by your bootstraps and say, from today, I'm moving onward, I'm moving forward in spite of?
I got to that point, that, again, another sort of cliche point, being sick and tired of being sick and tired. But I knew that if I carried on, I'd end up dead. I'd end up in jail. I'd end up in another hellhole. And so it was, that not just a penny like dropping, but it was just, I knew this wasn't like for me anymore.
Yeah. 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 Was it, were you supported by anyone, or was it like on your own volition and your own kind of, you were pretty independent and self-serving, or did you have other people with you doing this, or parents or family, friends?
Oh yeah. I mean, the support was mainly from a family. There wasn't any support from friends, because all my friends were all the people that I knew, and all the people that I knew were all the people involved, within that. So, I had a very interesting, I was thinking about it. Today. I think about it, a lot. As I grew up, I had a lifestyle that, because of what my dad did, that I was surrounded by a whole spectrum of society, from proper sort of, in America you call them gangsters, we call them villains here. Villains, all the whole sort of like spectrum, and and I think what that sort of gave me a good sort of like grounding in understanding a whole spectrum of society and of people, and it, in a sense, I grew up in that world of, that it was a sort of magical world, in one sense. It's like an English version of, let's say Goodfellas, or something a little bit, back in like the early 70s, like my dad's friends, that they had Rolls Royces. One had I remember we called him Italian Tony. He had a Ferrari Dino. As a kid, then it was like, you just look up and you just think, like, wow. And it's like, that was the sort of like lifestyle that I had of multifaceted characters.
Got it.
So I don't know. I mean, I digressed a little bit. I don't even know how I got onto that, but that's just how.
No. I've gotten painting like a Guy Ritchie image board in my mind of like different characters that I could illustrate with. It sounds like a trip, man. You're born into that then, yeah?
Yeah.
So was there when you separated from that and you started to write, without maybe, did you already know you were kind of writing the survival protocol, or was it just kind of living, flying by the seat of your pants, so to speak, just getting to the next day, to the next moment, whatever, and just putting these habits together and stringing along something that became what it is.
It's funny because people ask me, where does the Mason survival come from? And on one layer, it's just the name. And there was I did some training in Israel a long time ago, and I learned Krav Maga there, where before it was popularized, before anyone knew really what it was. And there was a group there, and I think they're still going, and it was called, and I was told by the guys, like, these are the guys who really know their stuff, and it was called Dennis Survival. And
nice.
And it was just a weird day, but it's like Dennis Survival. And then this was back in like the late 80s. You're sort of, when you're told something, these are the guys who know what they're doing. You think, oh wow, because you couldn't check anything then. There was no Google. There was nothing. So you just think, oh wow, these guys, and that name sort of stuck, and then Mason Survival just really came because I liked the name, but also it sort of not hides. Well, I suppose in a way it hides a lot of the fire that's got me to where I am, because a lot of people don't know about my, let's say, my sort of like pre-1986 history.
Yeah.
They just think, oh yeah, this guy, he trains, he's 60, he eats meat and what have you, and they don't know that sort of that part of it. But all of that has just been, and it's not people say, oh, are you a survivalist? Are you like Bear Grylls? Are you like all these the can you eat off the land? And it's like, well no, I'll eat a steak.
Yeah.
But it's really more about an urban sort of survival, which it to me it's in England we call it sort of ducking and diving. I've always had to sort of duck and dive and just get my way through life with a lot of stuff, especially early on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's funny hearing you say about how the name just kind of works for you. I say the same in a similar sense to my brand. People are like, well, what does life like Jake even mean? And who's Jake? And am I trying to be like him? I'm like, look, first off, it's just 3 words that rhyme, and it's my name, so it's easy to say and it's easy to remember. And then, it's kind of ambiguous as far as, and you can interpret it, your way, and maybe it's different for me than it is for you. But no, nonetheless, it's my survival protocol. It's my, formula that took me from addiction and drug abuse and depression and, a lot of the similar things that you were touching on too, that I found through these habits and, doing this at this time and eating this way and thinking like this. And hey, I kind of got this, kind of class or kind of a module of something that seems to be working or workable and could maybe be shared. And so I just, how else do you name it? And I was like, those 3 words rhyme. One of them is my name. Great, cool. But similar to what you're saying about survival, it's definitely, I think, about survival, and people might look at your life, because they've certainly looked at mine and said to me, like, man, it's so cool. All these places you've gone to, all these things and career paths you've tried and I say, look, man, it's not like I've been jumping from lily pad to lily pad out of recreation, but kind of like what you just said, it's been out of necessity. What I've been having to do in order to survive. It might look fun and adventurous. Yeah, sure, of course. But it's not that I've embraced this for the adventure. It's because I've embraced this out of the utility, out of the need to do so. And I just, I wanted to say that because it's like, wow, that's really cool to hear that. I didn't know we shared so much, but it's good to know that. So 1986, you start writing, a memoir, you start putting together pages or a program formatted, or you're just kind of still going through the gears of figuring out your own life and what's working for you and keeping you clean and not back in the dark, so to speak.
I think from 1986 I had this desire I suppose it was like a natural survival desire to sort of be better, to be better mentally, to be better physically, to be better emotionally, and so from that it was training. I played around with different, let's call it different types of diet. From being vegetarian, vegan, trying loads of juicing, and I've pretty much done I've done everything there is to do. I think I've done it because I wanted to see is there an advantage here? Is that going to make me stronger? Is that going to make me let's call it more sort of like trying to find that that thing that's going to make me a little bit more superhuman. And again, there was no Google, there was no social media, so you had to go to a library, you had to go and get books, to learn about this sort of stuff. You couldn't like there's these apps now that it will give you a 5-minute snapshot of what a book is. Then you had to read the whole fucking book. You had to go, but and stuff like that. And I was just trying to find a bit of, I suppose, really like an unfair advantage. Is what I'm eating, and from 1986, even from then, I knew that food was like a really, really important part. I knew that sort of like eating well was just really, really important. Also knew that training, and even though I perhaps didn't understand it like I do now, but sort of like mindfulness within a practice of something physical.
Yeah.
I knew those things were important. Whether you call it breathwork, meditation, just simple, mindfulness in whatever you're doing, trying to create some sort of perfection, whether that's in movement or whether that's in cooking something. So
sounds like a lot of just presence and awareness, appreciation.
I think it was. I was just following something. I don't know where it sort of like came from, but I was just following a road of self-development. It's as simple as that. A road of self development. And it's like there's no you don't just like now you can do everything in 2 days. You can get a trainer certification in 2 days. You can get a black belt in 2 days. You can get, you can get 3 million followers. If you pay someone $300 and what have you, you can be an Instagram star in a day. Then it was like, then you knew that things take time. Things, take time to sort of, and that is, I suppose, really how my life sort of evolved. It's just taken time, one step in front of the other, but always having that focus on ultimately just trying to be a little bit better today than I was yesterday. Chipping away, polishing the diamond, whatever, however you want to call it, however esoteric that you want to be. It's just being, a bit better today, understanding yourself better today than you did yesterday, and trying to somehow answer some of the questions that you perhaps have always had about your own existence and why things have happened and why just trying to be a better person, and it's a bit more than just trying to be a better person. Self-development as a human being.
Oh God, man. Yeah. It's funny hearing you talk about all those things and just in the coolest way, bouncing around diets. I'm right there with you. uh, trying to find what works for me. Mainly out of curiosity more than anything. It was not so much trying to beat my chest and say this is, what I'm identifying with as being the best, or that I say is for the moral reasons. I was like, it was never about that for me. It was always about what's going to make me feel the best, what's going to make me perform the best, what's going to make me be able to self-discover the best, and it was just through curiosity more than anything.
Yeah.
Again, it wasn't about morality or righteousness. It was
Yeah.
just simple curiosity. And through that
Yeah.
curiosity, it was like, hey, I'm finding a little bit. I'm finding a little bit. And so that's where I'd love to start on that is like, okay, take us through your diet steps, your diet discovery and exploration. Because even before that, you're talking about things taking time to develop and to grow and having to do it the long division way before the calculator and the internet and everything, etc. I used to fantasize as a child, or rather, I would use the libraries as a child as my way to escape through books. I was all about cars and airplanes and dinosaurs and anatomy and science, engineering, anything that was a big coffee, what they call a coffee table book, a big coffee table style book with lots of photos and lots of words to go with it. Because same, I'm a few years younger, but still didn't grow up with the internet. And my best friends were the friends that had encyclopedia collections at their houses, because that was like the internet then. Anybody that had the Britannica, the full volume Britannica, was like, oh my God, there's 100 books here to read about anything and everything from, cooking and arts of this or that, like basket, whatever, anything you could think of. That was it then. And so I was a traveler, a literary traveler, I guess you could say. So hearing you kind of talk about that was me, man. Like reading about Enzo Ferrari and the Wright brothers and anything I could get my hands on in the form of what I thought to be cool or fascinating. It was always coming through a book. So back to talking about the diets, did you find that interest through books, or did you find that just through trial and error? I mean, obviously, then there's still a lot of similarities the way that people eat now, sadly, in one way. And at the same time, you saw a lot of things first come out at that time too, like as far as in the transition from more wholesome foods into the processed food world, the integration of certain types of oils as the dismissal of others, and kind of seeing that change going on. So what got you in there, and where did you start, and how long did you stay in each one of those places before you're like, all right, it's time for another thing, and da 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 da.
Well, the thing I've always had an interest in cooking.
Nice.
Back from when I was a kid, so I used to experiment with stuff.
Yep.
But in terms of eating, what's interesting is that as a kid, I never liked vegetables. I never. I think most kids, don't like them,
Yeah.
and it's for. And even as a kid, you remember like looking at Popeye, and Popeye, and the thing was with Popeye is that I like Bluto. I like the guy with the beard and the big sort of, because there was something about Popeye that didn't sort of ring true, because he was eating spinach, which I just couldn't get on with, but he's also smoking. And it was like there was just something that was like a little bit. There was just something that I didn't really sort of like. Get with that. And I always used to, if we ever went out to eat, or was out with my dad and we'd go to a restaurant, I'd always have steak and chips. That was it. That's all I ever wanted to eat was steak and chips. I didn't want any vegetables. Just wanted steak and chips. And I'm pretty much I'm exactly the same. It's just now I don't have the chips, and so I was never eating shit food. Even through any of that time. But I just when I cleaned up, you have some friends and you say, oh, we've just got this book, and it was about eating like more like juicing or not combining protein with carbohydrates and things.
Yeah.
And then there was like a bit of a wow, because again you couldn't research, you couldn't go on Google, you couldn't go do any of this stuff. You just had to think, okay, well, I'll try that. And also, you know, there was stuff, you know, there was some crazy stuff. You know, my parents or my mother, particularly, she'd always be on a diet from one book to another. And just getting back to you were talking about oils. I remember the time when we went from eating butter to eating like a margarine back in the 70s, and it was like, it just didn't taste the same. It didn't spread on the toast the same. There was just something that wasn't. But it was shit. I mean, that's what it was. But there was just something. I remember that time going from butter to eating. It's called Flora, whatever some sort of like your margarine.
What a name. Yeah.
And talking about sort of like some of the books, like, you know, there was. I'm trying to think when it was. It would have been in the 80s. But my mother had this, you know, there was like the fibre diet or whatever they would call it. It was all about, you've got to eat your fibre, and you've got to check your poo. You know, so you go in the toilet, so you check to see if the poo was just like, oh, it's got plenty of fibre, and you just think now it's like, you know, people believe this shit. They just thought it's just nuts.
Yeah.
You know, how people can be programmed saying, yeah, eat this, and make sure when you've been to the toilet, you've had a poo, check it, put your head down the bowl, and there was
have
books
a bite,
about it.
have a sniff, have a bite.
Yeah, it was like, you know, it's like, you know, it's just. But anyway, so I went through the whole sort of gamut of different ways of eating. You know, not having protein with carbs, and that sort of just naturally went into becoming a little bit more vegetarian. And then I tried being a vegan, because it's like, well, if you don't have any of animal proteins, then you're not gonna. And then just, I can't say I was feeling bad, because I was still young. I was still in my 20s, but and I wasn't doing it for any moral reasons or anything like that. But as soon as I went back to eating meat, I started feeling feeling better again. Just feeling like stronger again. But it was just a good. It was a good experiment, you know, because it's, you know, all of that has given me some knowledge. It's gave me a little bit of, you know, let's call it a little bit of, you know, wisdom. To a degree, because when I was a vegetarian, I had to do it properly. Because there was a lack of like the processed stuff that they have now. But I remember going into vegetarian shops then and looking at some of the processed stuff, like they would have a sausage mix. And I remember looking at the ingredients, just thinking like, oh, that doesn't look too. And even then, understanding why, if you want it to be vegetarian and you're against slaughtering animals, then why do you want bacon to look like bacon? Why do you want bacon to taste like bacon?
Yeah.
It just doesn't make any sense to me. You know, call it something else. But I don't think they've got a name for any, you know, like, what do you call it? Slop.
Yeah.
You know, it's what do you call it? Let's call it bacon. We don't like the killing of the animals. We don't like the slaughter within it, but let's call it sausage. Let's call it pork. Let's call it bacon. You know, it's like it just doesn't make, you know. And I think if people actually woke up and really sort of like thought about that now, they'd be thinking, yeah, you're right. But people are programmed just to think that stuff like that is you know, it's okay. You know. So yeah. So I went through the whole trying different stuff, and really just trying to sort of, and also like pushing like the boundaries with whatever I was trying to sort of, do. And I think, like even like the last sort of like 15, 20 years, paleo, paleo was really, really good, but I abused it because paleo you could make really, really good desserts.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
You can make really, really good desserts because it's paleo. It's got agave syrup that comes from a cactus. That's okay. It's got lots of nuts, lots of fruit, and all of a sudden you're just eating these like
cacao.
Yeah, I mean and I remember what was the other one that was really, really good? Carb backloading. I don't know if you remember that one.
Oh, sure. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So
just binging out on one day.
That was
2 days a week.
Yeah, no, just like don't eat anything and then have a whole load of donuts.
500 grams of rice or rice.
Yeah, so like,
something like that.
It's like this is really good.
I was literally mashed banana in my cream of rice with cinnamon, maple syrup, and butter. Like just a bomb, of pure carbs like that.
And I used to make these flapjacks with oats and nuts and honey and maple syrup.
Yeah.
And this is when I was a long time ago, like skiing. So I wouldn't eat at all in the day. I'd make all these flapjacks. I'd eat a whole tray of them. and I think I'll burn it off tomorrow.
Yeah.
And you end up wondering, like, well, why do I feel shit? Why don't I have the energy? And the energy that you have is the memory of how good it tasted. Yeah, but it was so good. Yeah, it was. I felt pretty rough. But I've tried all of, because if you're likely to abuse something, like and if you give me something, I will take it to the limit and see how far I can go. Then I will do, especially with something like with paleo or like the zone diet. I mean, I tried that. That was too complicated for me. So now back to sort of the simplicity of, what do you eat, Mike? Oh, steak and eggs. Eggs, steak, bit of fish now and then, and that's it. And that's it. Really, it's just really, really easy.
It's definitely simple. That's for sure. What when did you start really getting headstrong into a dominantly carnivore diet?
I mean,
I know it's always been a staple for you, right? Like you said, having steak and chips. But like, when did it really flip on to be like, this is the way for me?
I suppose really when it became sort of, and again it was, you'll get all these headlines. Oh, but I've been a carnivore for 20 years. Oh, but there's someone who's been it for 30 years. I was eating like this before it even had a name. Where you didn't even know what you were doing. You were just like, this is just how. How I get I sometimes get a reminder on like Facebook that when I was in Switzerland, all I had in my kitchen was a pile of meat and a coffee pot. That was it. And it's like there may have been some like some a big sort of thing of coconut oil lying around, but it was just. But I was doing stuff like this before I even knew what it, I didn't even know it was called anything. There wasn't a name for it. It was just, I just didn't eat, anything else with it. And I suppose over the years it's just got, I'm not a strict carnivore. Whatever the terminology actually sort of like means. So if we go the strict version, it's like, okay, meat, water, and salt.
Yeah.
which is fine if you want to do, like some sort of detox, or you've got some autoimmune issues, etc., etc.
For sure.
But I have spices. I'll eat some fruit now and then. If I go out and there's like a really good piece of sourdough bread or something, but it's got to be really good. I'll have some.
Nice.
But over a year, it's plus 90% of just eating meat only. So and for me, it's about consistency.
Yep.
It's about consistency, not over, I've been a carnivore, haven't had anything else but meat for the last 3 weeks or 2 months or a year. It's about day in, day out, over a period of time. And I know that consistency, by not being or trying to have that strictness, I know I can keep doing this.
Absolutely.
I don't feel that I'm losing. I don't feel that I'm losing. I don't feel like I'm losing out. Nothing ever gets sort of boring. Oh, but Mike, you cook with spices, yeah, because it makes things taste a little bit more more delicious. Oh, but you're still sort of relying on that dopamine hit. And I was like, oh, okay, well, it's like, really.
If that's where I'm getting it from, then oh god.
I drink. People say, "Oh, you're not a carnivore because you drink coffee." Okay, right. Well, then just do meat, water, and salt, and do that for the next 20 years.
Yeah.
When you're 60, tell me you feel as good as I do now, and we go from there. So
the identities are very real.
Yeah, my door is sort of like broader. Rather than and I suppose in a sense, there's so much polarity. People are trying to create so much sort of them and us, and within one group, there's polarity within that group, and that's it's just there's got to be some sort of like reconciliation with stuff. Unfortunately, that is not what sells views. It's not what sells likes. It's not what people want to. They want to get on their sounding board and they want to scream and shout and
very much so.
I just do what I do, and prove me wrong, and that's how I sort of
It's very true about the labeling and identities that people cling to, especially with diets, man. God, I mean, of all the things that I've done in life, of all the characters that I've embodied, or all the things that I've aligned myself with in the form of an identity, whether it's in the military or working at this, working offshore in the oil field or doing this or that, whatever. And some of these things could be not appreciated or liked by people. They're entitled to their opinions, whatever. But having since, let's say, become, I don't want to say become, but having since really taken a step into being a consistent carnivore over the last 4 years, I have never faced nearly as much scrutiny, as much chastism, if that's the word, as much aggression just from people. Never before in my life. As a vegan, as a vegetarian, never. Not nearly as much. Jake's a vegetarian, we'll account for him. We'll get him in there. No worries, dude. Hey, you're a vegan. We know, like, whatever, pussy, blah, 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 blah. As a Marine, of course, there's always going to be the naysayers and the people that are, again, entitled to their opinions of dislike and disapproval, sure. But never have I been subjected to so much verbal assaults or just dismissal or antagonism from people that are against what they feel that I am doing represents. And then the amount of things that get put into that in the form of mislabeling, meaning, oh, he's a carnivore. That means he votes this way. He thinks this way. He's abusive to women. He doesn't like this type of people. He must be blah, 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 this. And I'm like, where did that come from? Like, I never got that mislabeling as a vegan. I never got that mislabeling as a vegetarian. I never got that mislabeling when I was a junkie. I mean, I was fine as a junkie. Oh, yeah, whatever. He's just a fucking blowhead. You know what I mean? Oh, whatever. He's just a booze hound, whatever. It's like nobody cared. But now all of a sudden when I'm like, hey, man, if you really want to feel great and get rid of inflammation and you want to cure some depression and for sure, like you touched on, any autoimmune issue for the most part, but things within your mind. If you really want to have an improved mental clarity and state of elevated consciousness, get into some fasting, get into red meat, salt, and water, and watch what's going to happen. And then people go crazy on that to the point where even now, recently for me, I've been wanting to do an extended fast of multiple weeks or like 30 days for quite some time. And I've been thinking about how am I going to do this? How am I going to do this? And I started doing a watermelon fast. So for 30 days, I'm going to eat nothing but consume nothing but watermelon, salt, and water. And today is day number 18 for me. And getting into this, people, a lot of followers and even friends were like, dude, I thought you were a carnivore. What the fuck? Like, how can you do that? I'm like, yo, first of all, it's an electrolyte fast. That's it. All of you that still drink coffee or that take these electrolytes with, random flavorings and natural flavorings and essences and whatnot. I was like, you think those aren't technically carnivore? Or like, you think those pass the gumption test of what's permissible on the diet? I'm like, you guys are so caught up in this, like you said, polarizing of identity, because people love to take sides. People love to have something to cling to and to throw mud at it, for sure. And I think that's one of the biggest issues we deal with in modern society, is that people are more apt to want to unearth truth to harm rather than unearth truth to heal. And I think that sucks, man. We're all about finding truth so we can fucking shit on each other with it, as opposed to finding truth in the form of self-discovery or actualization or whatever, to be able to go, guys, I found this. Oh my God, you got to get some of this. This is amazing. This will make you feel amazing. I can't help but want to share it because of how good it's made me feel, as opposed to, I found this out about Michael Mason. Fuck that guy. Like, I'm going to destroy his life. Man, that's what the world, to me, in many ways has become. And that's why I see so much of that clinging to identity. So when I started to do this watermelon fast, people were like, what the fuck, man? Blah, 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 blah. You're a sellout. You're a traitor. I'm like, gosh, man, like, I had no idea this was such an identity cling, But it's true. And it's greater, I think, than what people talk about religion or politics. Households can be more civil in regards to that, or football teams, in regards to that. Then God help you if you say, oh, well, I'm a carnivore, so I'm not going to have any of the veggies or whatever. It's like, what? How dare you do that? Or, now you make me feel lesser, or that you're better than me somehow. It's like, where does that come from? But 100% that's what I feel like a lot of people put it as.
I mean, the thing is that I think as a human, the human race, we have become we're so disconnected. We're just not just disconnected with other people, but disconnected with ourselves. So I talked about it before about, I didn't know how to define myself. I didn't know who I was. Well, now people don't know who they are. They, the value of being a human, that human entity, for most people it has no value anymore, because people are sick.
Yeah.
They are sick physically, mental health issues, pretty much the majority of people. And so that they're completely disconnected with themselves. They don't know how to. They don't see healing themselves as an option, because they don't know how to. Because the only way that they can heal themselves, but they can't. They have to go to a doctor to give them a prescription. That's the healing now. The healing is coming is outside of ourselves. So because we're so disconnected, is that everything we're reliant on something else. We're reliant on being I'm in this tribe, because by being in that tribe or being in that tribe gives that person identity. I'm with this tribe. Oh, yeah. I'm the carnivore. I'm the 80% carnivore. I'm the 70% carnivore. I'm the vegan. Yeah. I'm this. You're that. Rather than just and it doesn't help with let's say with social media, that to get anywhere on social media, you have to sort of put your flag in the sand, and it's like, and rather than just be me, or you just be you, because that's boring. And and I see it on when I post something, if I post something that is, let's say, more, if I post something about breath work, it's boring, but it has a massive impact. It's an important. Oh yeah, no. If I do an exercise that people can't see what's going on because it's internal, it's boring. But if they see me doing something that's sort of like big splash of movement, gets their attention.
Of course.
And it is. I suppose that is what is that's how it is. So being the quiet man doesn't get you any. So people see that as being the. I don't know what I'm trying to say, but other than we have lost connection with ourselves. People just look at ourselves like, oh, I've got this body. The body's fucked. I'm going to do my best to get through life and what have you. And maybe when I retire, then it's the past. They're fueled by the past. They've got the fear of the future, and that now.
Yeah.
They don't have the now. They don't have this moment now. Because they're so distracted by the future, by the past, and by the sickness that they do have. So you're going to get people who want, I'm going to be on that tribe. I'm going to go on you. I'm going to tell you you're an arsehole because you're eating watermelon and you should be a carnivore and you're letting the team down. It's like, okay.
Yeah. You are really hitting the namesake of the podcast right now, Michael, with the sick, scared, and stupid. The reason for that name, by the way, is because you said it all. I mean, that's who and how and what we have become. And to that point, we as human beings, the greatest commodity now available for sale and purchase and trade is us, is our data, is our health. And the more scared, the more sick, and the more stupid, the much more valuable. Because someone sick, scared, and stupid is far more valuable, far more appealing and marketable to the predator than someone that is healthy, unafraid, and intelligent. That's not scalable. That's not going to be able to be predatorily like taken advantage of by a vulture, like a big pharma or mass media or anything else that's trying to get into us and take from us everything that we've put together. But when we're sick, scared, and stupid, we just give it away because there we are. We wake up in the morning, we drink or eat whatever that has been, continually coming off the conveyor belt and the machine and the processing that's going into that. Then we still don't feel that great later in the day. Now we're going to take that medicine from the doctor that wrote us the prescription that's, getting the kickback from this company over there. And then we wake up and we do the same thing, just trying to reset and reset and reset. But it's this perpetual wheel of not just going nowhere, but regressing. And not steadily, but quickly, as time and statistics would show. So when did enough become enough for you to put your survival, the Mason survival protocol, into a formal action and say, I'm going to offer this to people. I'm going to coach people into this. I'm going to scale this. I'm going to have these retreats, which look fucking amazing. And I have to talk about those. When did that happen? And you say, here's the guide. Here's me. Services are offered. Day one. Let's start it.
I've always liked teaching. I've always felt I had something to share, and not teaching purely on some type of ego-based way. Which of course we all have, ego. Everyone likes to be the teacher. Everyone likes to be the sensei. Everyone likes to be sort of. But I've always liked just sharing. Sharing my experience, strength, and hope. I mean, it's as simple as that. And I feel that I have something to share that's of value, stuff that works. For me, through the ups and downs that I've had. Through my life, putting one foot in front of the other. But I'm not a viable coach, and what I mean by that is that having taught an awful lot of people, an awful lot of very, very influential people. I was a ski instructor in Switzerland. I worked as a bodyguard there. I looked after some very, very impressive, people. And one of the things that created good bonds with me and the people was that I didn't give a shit. And I don't mean it, I respect, I always give people respect, but in terms of, if I was coaching someone, just because you've paid me your money, it doesn't mean you've bought me. It's like I don't need your money. And so it was like I'm sort of like unbuyable in that sense. And I say to people, I'm not a high five type of coach. I'm not there to make you feel, like, oh, well done, well done, well done. Oh, you're doing so well today. You're doing so well today. So, that's, I mean, that's down more like to my sort of like, martial art training, where my teacher, sensei, would just like, he'd never say anything good about me. At all. It was just that's
zero
Japanese.
validation.
That was it.
Validation.
It was just that's it. And you would say, "Hi sensei, hi sensei, Mason, hi sensei, you're stonehead, hi sensei, you don't listen, hi sensei." You just, that's the way of. So anyway, again, I can digress off digressions. I just like sharing, because I think I have a story that's worth sharing with people, and so in regards to, I've coached for a long time. In terms of the retreats, that came about. I've always wanted to do something like that, and I had a big project in Switzerland that fell through. That's one of the reasons that I moved back to the UK. Anyway, a few years ago, a friend of mine asked me. He said to me, "Mike, I want to do what you do." He said, "If I pay, we find somewhere and we go away for a month, and I just want to do all the breath work you do. I want to do some of the training, and I just want to eat carnivore, and we can bring Wolf's my dog." And I said, "Yeah, nice. We can do that, but going away for a month is going to be quite intense. I don't have the time." Anyway, so I started looking into it, and then I just thought, Mike, if you can do it for 2 people, you can do it for 6 people. And it was just this sort of a voice came, and I don't mean it in any type of weird and wonderful way. Just like say, like, Mike, if you can do it for 2 people, you can do it for 6 people. And so I started looking for somewhere, and all of a sudden it just sort of came to. And this was during COVID, and I just thought, and I literally just thought, fuck it, I'm just going to book this place, and if no one comes, then I'll have a very expensive holiday with me and the dog. and it just basically just grew, grew from that, and I did it with that mindset that if no one comes, no one comes. I knew exactly what I was going to do, because it's very simple. When people contact me, they want to know what's your breathing regime, what do you eat, how do you train, do you have a program, what is your program, what is the Mason survival program. And so I knew what I was going to do, because what I'm doing on the retreat is what I do. Yeah. You're going to come on the retreat, and you're going to do what I do every day. Yeah. I get up, I drink some tea, I do some breath work, I do some moving around with a weight, with no weight. I go for a walk, I make breakfast, which is like around 12 or 1 o'clock.
Yep.
Go for another walk with the dog. Then eat, and then all the other stuff that I'm going to do, work and stuff like that, and then eat, 6 o'clock in the evening, and that pretty much is it.
Yep.
It's the essence of me, plus all the stories that I've built up over my lifetime, and have got some good stories, and I can talk a lot.
That makes for a good host.
Well, and some people don't get my. I've got an interesting humour. Some people don't get it. They're a bit sort of. They're not sure if I'm gonna hug them or kill them. And yeah, and I say that in a sort of joking sort of way. But that's I suppose that's the English part. That's the English part, of me with the humour that we have. So.
So what's upcoming for you, Michael, in the nearest future?
So I've got another retreat coming up in 6 weeks. I've just launched a beef jerky company.
Congrats.
So that's been launched for the last month. So now just like building on that, getting our accreditation so we can sell into Europe, and then into the US.
All right.
And then maybe in a few months' time you'll have Mason's meets in the US.
Fantastic. I'm definitely looking forward to that. What's your favorite thing? What's your favorite thing to prepare? Favorite foods to prepare for everybody that's probably dying to know.
I like good steak.
Yep.
Of course, when you get some really really fantastic beef, there's nothing like it.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to. I've got some lamb shoulder which I'm gonna slow roast tomorrow. I'm gonna do that. It's gonna be inspired, with some Persian spices. So I'm gonna roast that. So I've got some. How am I gonna make it? I've got some pomegranate molasses, some cumin, some onion, garlic. I'll roast that with some stock for 7 hours.
Oof.
And then just pull it apart tomorrow evening, and just gorge. But the best thing is having it the day after, and then I just fry it over, and it goes crispy, and it's just sticky.
Nice. Oh yeah.
And yeah. Yeah.
I'm gonna have to steal that one. For giving, let's say, a couple of just bullet points to someone. If you just had a small note card and they were really struggling, they were trying to figure something out, and you had just a small note card to give them a couple of bullet points that could impact them, give them something of value, what would be on that note card?
One day at a time. And I think that again, it's another cliche. Keep what you're doing, compact it to the now. The more that you can take your head out of yesterday and out of tomorrow and just bring it into now, with everything. It sounds easy. But it's, and if a day is too much, just for the next hour, just bring it. If you can do that, just like a little bit of mindfulness within, within that, and that's how you can create consistency. That's how you can create consistency, because if you can do it for today, you can replicate it, and you can do it for tomorrow. And I think once you break things up, I'm going to do this new diet. I'm going to do it for the next year. It's impossible. You won't.
Yeah.
I'm on this 3-year program. Well, you're not going to fucking finish it. You just do it for now, and I think that is because that's how I live, how I try to live. Because my happiness is dependent on how little I live in the past and how little I live in the future. because for any given moment, you bring it back to this very, very moment, this very, very minute, this now, everything is good.
Yeah.
So whatever's happening, you just bring it back to this sort of like this moment. Of course, people are going to say, "Oh yeah, but it's not the same. It's easy for you and everything." What do you mean it's easy? Do you know me? Do you know what I've done today? But people want to find a reason not to do something, but they want to find a reason not to get connected back to themselves.
Yeah.
And that's what all this is about. It's about getting back to our true self. Taking away all the mask, all the clothes, the virtual clothes that we've put on, the illnesses, the sickness, and everything. Just getting back to our true nature. So that's more than a bit of a one-liner to say to it. But the thing is with that is that when people are asking for help, that's a sign that they want to get back. That's a sign that they want to get back to. They've had enough of being sick. They've had enough of being sick and tired. Whatever, whether it's physical or mental or whatever. What do I need to do? So it's like I don't know what you need to do, but whatever you decide to do, one day at a time. If you're going to go on a carnivore diet, just one day. You don't have to think, what am I going to do next month when I've got to go to the wedding and blah 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 and all of this. Just a month's time.
Right.
Anything. I want to get fit. It's good to have a goal. It's good to have a goal for sure. Oh yeah, but we're going on holiday and I won't be able to train in 6 months' time because we're going there and I'm not gonna. I won't be able to bring my equipment. There's not going to be a gym. And what have you. It's like wonder. But this is the stuff that people talk to me about. Like people who I coach. That's the stuff that they talk about, one day at a time. And it's like, but it's easy. It's like one day at a time.
Yep.
It's simple because it is simple. And people want, and I did a post today about, complication. People want complicated stuff. When you give them something, something easy. What should I eat today? Steak. Yeah. How much? How much fat should I just eat? Just get a piece of steak and put it on thing, and that's it. But how do I know how do I know when I've had enough? But eat it. I don't know.
Yeah.
Eat it. But you can't eat any more. Then you then stop. Just try. People don't like to get off their arse and try something. A lot of the time people say like, well, how many reps? What weight did you use? How many sets? What difference does it make? What is this any? I really like that. Is it any good for this? Try it.
Right.
Try it. Replicate it.
Yeah.
And have that bit of self-discovery. And people have lost that ability of self-discovery. Mike, what's under the cup? Well, pick the fucking cup up and look. Oh yeah. They want someone else to do it for them. They don't want to take that chance of like, just in case, there's a snake or something. Well, oh yeah, or whatever. They want someone else. They want someone else to do it, and so we've lost that self-reliance. We've lost that sovereignty, and we've lost that. We've lost health, and so everything that I do is about reclaiming our sovereignty, reclaiming our self-responsibility, that looking after me. And when people ask, sometimes they say, well, that's selfish. You should be sort of like trying to save the world. But everything's, this is another sort of like what we have now. People are, we talked about it, it's about the farmers and about the environment. People are going out and wanting to save the environment and everything.
Yeah.
But you're sick.
Yeah.
You're sick. You're sick as a person. Shouldn't you be sort of like trying to sort of save yourself? Because if you can save yourself, then you can have some impacts on the person next door to you, the person, your neighbour. And that to me is just more, is more important. And it's about making those type of changes rather than me becoming whoever and saying, oh, I've got to save the world, eat meat and save the world and blah, blah, blah. Eat meat, save myself.
That's the only place in the world where we agree with that is on an airplane as people. When you hear before offering your put your mask on first before offering assistance. The only place where we hear that and we go, okay, got it. Everywhere else, it's selfish, it's self-centered, it's wrong. It's just, how could you prioritize yourself over other people and other things and whatnot? But, oh man, you went off on a good rant there about a lot of things. But like you said, just one day at a time, one moment at a time. I said it to people when the big goal seems like too much, focus on the little things. When it's like, oh my God, how are we ever going to get up there? I don't know. Like you're a ski instructor. I talk about climbing and mountaineering a lot. There's two types of climbers. Standing at the bottom of a mountain looking up the face. One goes, oh my God, how are we going to get up there? This is going to be impossible. And the other one goes, man, you know how cool it's going to look from the top? But Jake, how are we going to get up there? Well, I don't know, but we're going to figure it out. We'll start. Look, here, this is how I'm going to start. And I'm on the wall. And then we just start going. I don't know. It's not to say to be stupid or to be reckless, but it is to say at least have some type of belief, some type of curiosity, some type of childhood wonder that it could be doable or how cool that would be, as opposed to having the immediate, no, how are we going to do it? I don't know. Like you talk about people asking questions, stupid questions, to be frank. Mason, how do I do this? Mike, how do I do this? Michael Mason, it's like, read the fucking caption that I just posted that's like 1,000 words long for you, that's attached to the video, that literally breaks down the workout, rep by rep, set by set, tempo, and everything. Read the caption. Hey, Michael, how many sets were in that? It's literally right there. But like you said about turning the pot over, it's a lot easier to have it given to you. Having to admit that work is required is like, oh my God, it's the kryptonite of what everything I don't want, the bane of existence.
And getting back to just talking about climbing the mountain and just the mindset. Let's say back to a day at a time or a moment at a time. Many times I've been at the top of a pitch, skiing down with the group, and it's been quite gnarly, very steep. And most people would look and think, oh shit. Especially if it's like moguls and there's rocks, and they look at the whole thing. And yet, if they just look the first 10 meters, I said, well, if the slope was just 10 meters, you could do it because it's just one turn.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So just do one turn. You may have to do 1,000 turns, but just do one turn. Because if you can do one turn, you can do another one. I'm not asking you to do 1,000 turns. I'm just doing that one turn. Yeah. And by doing that, they can get down something that can be quite scary.
Yeah.
And that's how you over, in the same way, like you're going to climb up. How do we do it? One bit at a time.
Yeah.
How long is it going to take? I don't know. It could take 5 minutes. It could take 3 hours. You may fall and die. Yeah. And then we're really in the shit because we can't get the helicopters because there's no phone reception here and what have you. So we're going to be out all night and we may die. All of us may die and what have you. And that's the story I tell people. I say, well, we may die if you fall here, we're fucked.
Right.
Because there's no signal.
Right.
So so don't fall. And they don't know if I'm laughing or not. But getting down, it's one turn at a time. It's one turn at a time. And say the same with with anything. If you're learning to box,
Yep.
And you're defending. Your box, and you'll slip one punch, then you slip another one. You're not trying to do the whole 15 rounds in one go.
Yep.
And then you build it up. Okay, now I can see an opening. Okay, I'll do that.
Except
it's
people watch boxing once and want to be Mike Tyson.
Yeah. Well, he's not a bad person. I mean, that's going to be an interesting fight if it's actually for real.
Yeah, man. God help him. I mean, he looks great. But
I mean, Mike Tyson is just a scary man.
Yep.
It's that he's
plain and simple.
That's it.
That is the it factor of all.
He's just the way that he moves is just
violent. It's pure violent. Purely violent.
That's it. Pure violence. That's it.
Hitting with bad intentions. I love that about him. And you talking about things being simple and versus easy. I say most things in life are simple. How we interpret them, however, are easy versus difficult. It's easy for you, it's difficult for me, but the innate fact of most things is that they are simple, because simplicity is a matter of fact. It's not an opinion. Something either is or is not simple. The application of that is subjective. It's easy for you, it's difficult for me, but most stuff is simple. Like, I'll kind of finish up everything with this after you talk about one step at a time. Johan Cruyff talking about football, soccer to the rest of the world, or to the American world. Talking about football is simple, but playing simple football is hard. That's like, I mean, man, that's a hammer to me, because it's so true. And Guardiola is like a master of trying to teach that now in Manchester, but that's true in life, man. And like what Michael's talking about, the one day at a time, one step at a time, one moment at a time, 1 second, however much you need to break it down. I've done that in races, thinking like, I can't look at it like a marathon or an Ironman. It's like, sometimes it's a quarter mile at a time, or it's just, God, give me another 50 meters. Fuck, I'm dying out here. Like, I just need to nick my way a little bit further. Like you said, maybe it's the next meal. You're on a deployment, you're in the military. Just, God, get me to the next meal, please. Or get me to the next corner of the street where I need to cross. Like, we got to go through this entire apartment complex? No, we got to go through, like you said, 10 meters at a time, one turn, one room. Because otherwise we're not going to get through it. It starts here.
Things change by degree. And it gets back to what we were saying about, like, there's so much polarity. Right, wrong, hot, cold. But things just change by degree. When people, we're so used to being from here. Oh, but it's so big to I can't do that. But you can change by degree. There's no part on the thermometer that hot goes to cold. When
Nice.
what point does hot become?
Yeah.
What point does hot become cold?
Oh, that's
At
great.
what point
that's
does
great.
this? I mean, that's the law of polarity. It changes by degree. Everything is exactly the same. It just changes by degree. And if you look at things as just like changing by degree, I can reconcile from being hot to being cold, whatever. I'm weak now. I want to be strong. Okay, you get a little bit stronger tomorrow. Get a little bit stronger today. A little bit stronger today. You can't go from nothing to,
Absolutely.
But people want to do that now because they want the magic pill. They want the magic pill.
Yeah.
Oh, I want to. I'm 600 pounds. I want to be, 150 pounds next week. So they want the magic pill. Doesn't work. Yeah.
One day at a time. One day at a time. Michael Mason. So everybody listening, this is another episode of Sick, Scared, and Stupid. podcast geared towards you to maybe take something away to be able to be happy, healthy, and wealthy. Today's guest, Michael Mason. You can find Michael at masonsurvival.online for his bookings of online coaching, as well as his retreats. He's got one upcoming in the next 6 weeks, as well as Mason's Meats, Michael's new jerky company that's just launched in the UK, soon to be launching throughout the EU and the United States. Very excited about that. And you can find him at Mason Survival on Instagram. I'll be dropping all those in the show notes for everybody to see. But otherwise, man, super cool to hear you, to listen with you, to talk with you, and just to share some time with you, Michael. So thank you for sharing with us very much, man. Really appreciate it.
Thanks for inviting me.